Did it do it? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to 45th Street Baptist Church's 45 Seconds of Purpose. We're glad to have you back with us. Thank God we made it to another Wednesday to celebrate the Lord's goodness. We're so thankful that you have dialed in, tuned in. Some of you I know are listening. Some of you are watching. We are not only in this medium of Zoom, but we're also on Facebook Live and on, if I'm not mistaken, we're on YouTube as well. But we're so glad to have you here with us. Before we get into the heart of our discussion this afternoon and our special guest, we make sure all of our church members understand how appreciative we are for your continuous support, how appreciative we are for your love, all the phone calls. We've been calling around, checking on members as the days go by. Not only that, members have been calling and checking on Reverend Sparks and Mrs. Sparks, and we're thankful for that. We want to make sure we're checking on one another throughout this ordeal. We also want to make sure we're continuing to check on those folks who we know are in the hospital and in nursing homes. They're in precarious situations right now, and they need to know that we have not forgotten them. And it's even more important because their families can't go to see them, their families can't visit them, and it's so important that we maintain that contact with them. Thank you so much for how you've been supportive in your Give to 4-5 campaign. I know that you're mature in your responsibility to 45th Street. I want to say publicly how appreciative I am and ask you to continue to give, continue to do what you've been doing because it certainly makes a difference. I want to ask you to go ahead and put on your prayer list if you haven't already. Pray for Deacon Walter Wright. Deacon Walter Wright is going to be having surgery on the 29th as scheduled. And God's will, that surgery will go forward and the Lord's healing power will be all over that situation. And he will have that cancer removed and all will be well with him. Start praying for him right now. Also pray for Deacon Walter Miles, that he will be able to get out of the hospital and go back home and that he'll be able to regain his strength and continue to do well. There's so many situations going on. I know you're concentrating on what's going on in your house, but life is bigger than what's going on in your house right now. Well, tonight we've got a unique guest, unique to this medium, but he's not unique, nor is he a stranger to 45th Street. In fact, it's not unusual for our guest tonight to be speaking or talking at 45th Street because he's one of our deacons. But he also happens to be the chief of staff of the city of Birmingham. And so we're glad to have our very own Deacon Brother Cedric Sparks Sr. with us tonight. Hello, Cedric. How are you?
Hello, Pastor Brother Judge. It's good to be on with the 4-5 family and everybody under the sound of my voice.
Well, let's go ahead and get this out of the way right now, Cedric, because a lot of people have this messed up. They think for some reason you're my son when we go different places. We need to
yeah, they should think you my son.
We need to straighten this out and let them know we're brothers. We're brothers.
Right. That's right. We're brothers.
I'm just a little bit taller and a little bit older than him, but
yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
Part of that's true. But we definitely got the same mama, and there's a sister between us, and so we're so thankful that you came tonight. You've been busy, man. You've been busy. So before we get into, some of those things that you and I talked about, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Cedric? Just Cedric.
Sure. So it's good to be able to talk to you, Pastor, and certainly I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you. Obviously, we share numerous relationships, but I still want to thank you just for who you are and what you do, what you mean to me, and what you mean to our church family and our city. Thank you to the 4-5 family and the members of the Birmingham community who also may be chiming in. And you've given a little bit of a bio. Cedric D Sparks Sr. I'm married to Pamela. We have 3 children, CJ, Deja, and Chancellor. I've been employed with the city of Birmingham for now 22 years. I'm a graduate of West End High School, 22 years.
Wow.
Yep. Graduate of West End High School. Good things do come out of West End. University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa. Roll Tide all day. And then I'm a graduate of Miles Law School. So I've served for years at the City of Birmingham Mayor's Office Division of Youth Services. And I was very, very fortunate to be asked by Mayor Randall Whiffen to serve as his chief of staff once he was elected to mayor of our great city.
So now it's been about two and a half years ago now. We've been rocking and rolling. You've been strung out. In fact, I probably see you more at church than I see you at work. I mean, it's just unusual. You're always busy. You were busy, and then this happened. I mean, and this took it up a whole nother level. So how has, just a general overview for folks, how has COVID-19 impacted the city of Birmingham's government generally?
So interestingly, I always try to note, because people say, well, what is Birmingham now under Randall Whiffen's leadership? And so there are a few things that I kind of use to lay the foundation that helps people understand how we tried to move since COVID-19 hit. So the first thing is, and you'll appreciate this, many people have heard us use the theme, putting people first, because that's the spirit of how the mayor moves.
Right.
And we do that under the mission of building community through servant leadership. But we don't believe that government is kiss the ring, that we do it with a servant's heart. We should be the chief servants. And we do that through our core values of customer service. We want Birmingham to be the Chick-fil-A of city government. We believe that you can expect great customer service, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. And you can finish this phrase. We believe that systems what?
Work. They work.
Systems work. System work. They absolutely do if you let them. So that's who we are, what we do. But since COVID-19 hit our nation, well, really since it hit this world, our nation, the state, the city, Mayor Whiffen, our executive leadership team, our city leadership, you included, and our city staff, we've been pretty intentional about doing several things. The first thing is the fundamental thing that every government is responsible for, which is protecting our citizens. Right. So we've tried to ensure that the things that we put in place keep all of our citizens protected. The second thing that we've tried to do since it hit is keep our citizens informed with the most up-to-date information possible. We've hosted about 15 what's called teletown hall meetings for various constituent groups, from neighborhood leaders, faith-based leaders, young professionals.
Well, that was one today with all the employees.
Right. We try to make sure that our employees are well informed. That's just to name a few. So we've been doing that regularly. Many of the folks under the sound of my voice have probably seen Mayor Whiffen do a number of media briefings because some people just get their news that way. We've tried to use every social media, every electronic communication and virtual forum possible to make sure that we get the word out. And we've even done calls where the mayor is calling citizens just to keep them informed. So that's the second thing that we've done since COVID-19 hit, just stay in touch with people.
I saw him online. Talking to Ricky Smiley and a few people. I see Nelvin just jumped into the view right there. Ricky Smiley was calling around the various folks with the mayor on the line. Probably confusing folks when they say Smiley when he calls. But that's a great thing. I think that kind of levity is needed at this time because everything we're dealing with is so serious. Everybody has so much tension going on. And so we can appreciate having someone who is leading like that. And I can tell you from sitting in those meetings, people don't know that we sit in those meetings together, and I sit there as your subordinate in terms of structure. And amazing thing. Well, I'm gonna say that. Yeah, and it's a great thing to be able to see you sitting there leading the way you do. Mama and Daddy would be mighty proud to see what's going on in that room. But there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't understand. And I know in terms of trying to tell all that's happening, probably not at privy to tell that, but what's been the most shocking thing for you during this COVID, since we've started under this emergency declaration?
Probably the most shocking thing is, and I don't know that I would consider it a shock, but it's the fact that we've gotten so accustomed to our freedoms and our liberties and moving how we want to move, when we want to move, that in a time of a pandemic and crisis where we really need for people to stop and shelter in place and be still, that's been extremely challenging for folks. And so as much as we've tried to communicate the dangerous effects of this virus, that for a while people continued to move as though we were not in the midst of a pandemic. And that was very shocking because As we watched across the world, lives being taken, it was shocking that it did not hit home to a lot of people sooner than it did. And so
Yeah.
we had to take different steps to make sure that people understood just how serious it was. That's probably been the most shocking.
And do you think people are taking it serious now still?
I do. Well, I do. I think there's been a shift, and unfortunately, sometimes it does take a situation hitting folk close to home before it becomes a reality. So yes, I have seen people take it seriously, and that's been shown not just by our perceptions, but by the data as well. So I hate that it got to that point, but as one who's in this position, I'm glad that at least it did get to a point where people recognized it.
I got you. Well, so when you're trying to institute changes of this magnitude, how big a lift is that for the team that you have around you? Is it such that you got divergent opinions, or do most folks fall in line to follow what's going on? How does that work out? Because somebody has to take the lead, and I know Mayor Wolfen steps out front, but behind the scenes, somebody's helping to negotiate all that. How does that work?
So it's awesome having a very clear-minded leader in Mayor Woodfin who just loves people. And I've said that for as long as I've known him and served with him, that he loves people. So his decisions are always guided by his love of people. So he's clear-minded in his vision. Then we have an executive leadership team that is one, we don't seek to divide and conquer. We work very well together. So we have a lane of operations, a lane of strategy, and a lane of staffing. And then we drill down onto another level through our executive leadership team, where we have a clear group that focuses on communication, affairs with other levels of government. So for us, it's a system that we use. And again, the mayor is the general of that system, but we run our lanes well. And in times like these, it's important that one, you have a genuinely good relationship with your team members and your principal, which is our mayor, and that you develop plans such that it's easily understood and you can walk those plans out. So yes, during this pandemic, it's been a heavy lift, but we're very fortunate to have a leader that cares and a team that works well together.
So a lot of people believe that the city is closed. The city's closed, but that nothing could be further from the truth. The city can't close.
Right. So that's a really great point, Pastor Brother Judge. So a few things in that regard. People don't realize that when the county and the state labeled essential services, oftentimes people don't understand that government is an essential service. So just like people have to go to the hospital or to the grocery store or to the pharmacy, people expect that if they call 911, that the police will show up. People expect on their respective day of the week that when they put their trash out, it will be picked up, or that they can get a business license, or if they call a medic, that they'll show up. So, and not only that they'll show up, but that they'll do it in what we call a CETA certified way, that they'll get quality customer service. So no, the city is very much open. The city cannot close. And especially during a pandemic, we're people too. It affects us as well. So you have to ensure that one, the city stays moving, that it not only stays moving, but it stays moving in what we call a CETA certified way, and that the service is such that it does as little disrupt to the normal routine that so many of our citizens are expecting. And that does take a lot of planning and coordination.
Now, how does that, you say in a CETA certified way? I know what that means.
Yes.
And there may be some others out there that have heard us, but explain that to folk who don't know what a CETA certified way means.
So CETA certified, CETA is the acronym that we use for a short way of explaining our core values, which are customer service. Again, our belief is that we can be the Chick-fil-A of government, and that takes a while to turn around, but it's the expectation that government can deliver service in a way that people think it's meeting their need.
That means
efficient.
Every part of government.
Every single facet. I mean, when you consider police, fire, public works, transportation, municipal court, division of youth services, every single facet of government, every employee, all 3,500 city employees. So customer service, efficiency, effectiveness, how do we do it? And do we do it well? Are we transparent with what we do? And do we hold people accountable? And do we allow ourselves to be held accountable? So when I say CETA certified, it's hitting all 5 of those points with how we deliver services. And we still expected to do that during this pandemic.
And I know I asked you to repeat that because I'm used to hearing and we're used to hearing it, but I know there's some people out there that have not heard that before, and make them understand that the same level of service that was existing before COVID came into our community is expected now.
It's absolutely expected.
Even though we're dealing with fewer employees,
right,
they're still expected to work to a standard.
Right. Yeah. So that's the best question. I mean, that's the best way to phrase it, that we're expected to work to a standard, whether it's 10 of us or whether it's 2,000 of us. And in every lane that we run in, our citizens should grow to expect that the services that will be delivered by Birmingham will be in a CETA certified way. And we'll get people used to saying it and thinking that. And that's what we work towards every day. And nothing changed during the pandemic.
Approximately how many employees are there for the city, approximately?
So we have approximately 3,500 city employees. That's spread across 32 divisions and departments. I'll talk about this in a second. I wouldn't want people to think that our city services have not been impacted, but the services that we have in place, we expected our employees and all of us to perform at the highest level.
Let me say this as we go along. I know there are a lot of people out there listening on Facebook and on this feed. If you have questions that you want to ask Cedric, we got someone who's monitoring those questions, and we'll get them fed through and try to answer them as best we can. I know he'll answer whatever he can in the manner that he can. But tell me about how you master an event like this when the people who still have to work are being affected by the same event, because people don't understand that.
Yeah, so interestingly, our employees are, they're people too, and they have families as well. So it's really sometimes a challenge to make sure that we can continue to motivate and inspire them, because they are essential to everyone's quality of life. So I've noted that we did have to adjust some of our services, and we have to balance that with what's the need of the community versus our employees are people too. So just for people's information, some of the things we've had to adjust. Our public works department, we did have to adjust some of the services. We did suspend recycling, with the exception of a program that we call City Hall, HAUL, which is a pilot program that we're looking to implement. We did alter grass cutting a little bit. And we had to adjust how the public works employees were getting around, because they have to practice social distancing as well, because we want to keep them safe. We've also had to try to protect our employees who have to engage with the public. Police, fire, public works, transportation, like they actually engage our citizens. So we've had to move to some telework efforts to make sure we reduce exposure. The use of our city parks and facilities. So I've talked about that a little bit earlier, how many of our parks, we had to limit the level of movement in the parks. We had to make sure that we shut down some of the basketball goals, playground equipment. Some of our city meetings have gone virtual, or we've had to cancel them. And then some of our events have had to be canceled. So some things have changed. I'm trying to get a lot in a little time, but we have had to adjust some of our services, but by and large, we tried to keep things moving at a very, very high level and keep those employees who come in and day out, to let them know we appreciate their service and commitment as well.
Well, I'm asking these questions because sometimes people don't think that people who are in leadership are impacted by the circumstances that they're having to make decisions on. But even in our family, my son-in-law, who's a firefighter for the city of Birmingham, had to be quarantined for 14 days because he simply went on a 911 call and he had to be quarantined for 14 days. People don't understand that these things affect our families as well. And and my brother, you too have some issues that you need to stay away from some circumstances sometimes.
I hear you loud and clear. There are our employees, many of them are faced with some underlying health issues as well. And so they have to be equally alert. And I would just ask for everybody under the sound of my voice, again, our public employees, our city employees, they every single day, they go hard, as we say, go hard in the paint for the citizens. And so when you see them, show them some love. Like, let them know, even when they're coming by, draw them aside, put something in the window, just letting them know that, because they really do go 100%. I get to see it. I get to feel it. And I know how they feel about taking care of our citizens. And so we can't show them enough thanks for their sacrifice and the love of our city.
When we call 911, we expect for someone to answer and to respond to our circumstances. And that puts everybody in harm's way. And they do it time after time after time. And so
I'm going to talk about that too, because we need the public to understand that too. There are a few important things that I need to make sure that the public leaves this call, this meeting understanding.
Okay, go ahead and talk about that right now.
So there are a few takeaways, because I know that there's so much information that we could share in this forum, but I would ask for everyone to consider a few things. One, as it stands, we have a shelter in place that is in effect through April the 30th for right now. I would ask everybody first, please sacrifice now so that life can return to normal as soon as possible. And to be your brother and sister's keeper. Government, we can set laws, we can set policy, but we can't determine community culture. So let's be accountable to one another and say, hey, brother, hey, sister, like let's shut it down for right now so we can get back to normal as soon as possible. That's first. Second thing is protect the people that protect us. So you mentioned your son-in-law who works for the fire department. Please give full disclosure if you have to call 911, because many of our public safety personnel are responding, but because people are afraid that they may not respond because it's a COVID-related issue, they're not giving full information, and that exposes our public safety units because they're coming out and they may not have the necessary PPE on based on what they were told. So please don't give misinformation. They will come out. They're prepared to come out. They're equipped to come out. Third and final thing as a takeaway is make sure that people who are sheltering in place are also sheltering in safe. All right, we've seen some upticks in domestic violence because, let's just be honest, people are at home now, people are up under each other. You have parent-child, you have spouse, you have significant others, you have people who maybe don't have conflict resolution skills. So we need to make sure that people are aware of resources that are available, that they are safe where they're sheltering, so that we're not putting people in harm's way. Those are three absolute takeaways and issues that I want the public to understand during this time.
We got a question that's coming from Facebook. Someone is asking what everybody wants to know. What will, in your opinion, what do you think the new normal will be when we lift this emergency shelter in place order? The new normal.
Yeah, so I think many people are now readily aware of what they don't see. And the challenge with COVID-19 is it's an invisible war. And people are taking active steps now to protect themselves from what they can't see. So I think the new norm will be, for a while, a significant amount of social distancing. I think people will be less hesitant to engage in each other's space without considering what they may not be seeing. And so I think a lot of our public gatherings and events for a while may be such that we will just have to probably keep our distance from one another until we can all be assured that that we're in safe space as we re-engage. And that's unfortunate because it, especially down south, we touchy-feely folk, and church folk, we love hugging on each other and kissing on each other. But unfortunately, that's something that we have to right now slow down. There are a lot of children who can't go see their parents and loved ones who can't go engage with family members because it puts them in harm's way. So I think that'll be the new normal for a little while.
It's interesting you say that about church. We got one thing that we do every Sunday at 45th Street, the Friendly Church Song, where we, in the service, fellowship with one another. A number of churches do that, but it is a hallmark of how we worship and fellowship. We're going to have to rethink how we do that particular part of our service. How do we engage under those circumstances? And we're going to also have to look at how we do church going forward from there. And how long it's going to be before we actually get back into a physical worship experience. And it's my opinion that at the earliest, we're talking about June, that we can even talk about coming back into the worship facility. And that depends on what the governments do. That depends on what the health professionals say. And so I would advise everybody at the church to make sure you got what you need. And when you don't have what you need, let us know so we can support you. Make sure you got somebody who's helping you, and just give us a call. Cedric has said it best. We got to make sure we're prepared for the new normal going forward, because we don't know how long this new normal is going to last. I think it's going to be from now on, just between me and you. The health experts tell us that this is going to be around us like the flu, that we'll get it seasonally sometimes. And that's a frightening thought, even from a church perspective. That's a frightening thought. But we've had situations before.
Right.
And been able to deal with them. Tell me this, you mentioned earlier about the domestic violence situation, and I think that's right on point. We know that the numbers are going up, but families are at home. Some families are really creative and can come up with things. We see online all the time what they do, but there are some folk who just don't have that degree of creativity.
Yeah.
The city done anything to help give them some guidance on how they can spend their time together in that space?
Yeah, you said it best. There's some people who want to be intentional about how they engage their family. And after about 30 or 45 minutes, they're like, well, we do not. Like, they really are like, I don't know what to do. So the city put together what's called a stay-at-home guide. And it's a resource for families that they can use to really kind of plan out their day. So we've targeted toddlers, teens and tweens, adults and seniors. So in addition to the school schedule that we are encouraging our young people and their families to continue to follow, it also provides resources, links, sample schedules in the areas of cultural arts, health and wellness, athletics and recreation, and education that families can do together. And it's just a guide, it's just a template, so you don't have to try to think so hard. We know a lot of families want to do it, they just don't know how. We thought this would be a great resource for them to use as a guide on what to do since we're all here together in the first place.
I think that's a fabulous idea. We got a lot of questions coming from the different mediums on Facebook.
Okay.
Question about the school system. It's about a staggered date in the new school year, meaning only a set number of students in the physical building. I'm just reading it the way they put it out there. But basically, there are a lot of questions about what might happen once it restarts. And can you speak to that just for a moment?
Sure. So a lot of what will come is obviously yet to be determined. There'll be coordination on a federal level, state level, and then the local level with all of our leaders. But there will be some adjustments to how our young people and how we as a community move. So the recommendation about a school schedule is, I'm certain, a part of the consideration. Step one is making certain that we effectively wrap up this school year with our young people, and then there will be active steps taken by our Board of Education with our state board, and then obviously with coordination with the city to ensure that we're preparing our young people, because we don't want gaps in learning. And we want to make sure that we come out of this year and move into next year with our young people being adequately prepared while we're still being careful because of this new normal. So those decisions have yet to be determined. But our city leaders and our education leaders are absolutely forward thinking in that.
Again, it's not anything that you're not impacted by personally. You got a college freshman, you got a high school student, and a middle school student all at your house. How's that working out?
Yeah, so our house is just like other folk house. We got a grown college student who had a taste of freedom who's back at home. We have a high school freshman who was enjoying freshman life. And then we have a sixth grader who does what sixth graders do. So we've tried to make certain that we did our part, because we think that school is the first teacher. I mean, the home is the first teacher. So we followed the schedules that have been given by our school system. I want to salute them for the great job, and we're going to miss Dr. Lisa Herring. But I want to salute them for the great job that they've done and putting the resources in place. But again, follow the guidelines and templates that some of the other resources have given us to use. And if you don't know how, reach out, because there are resources in place to help you do it. But our home is no different than others. I think, fortunately, our kid's mom has been like principal. We have Sparks University at our house. So yeah, I think it's worked out well for us.
We got another question asking about voting, absentee voting, and whether City Hall has information there. And the answer is no, that's a county function.
Right.
Get the information from the Secretary of State's office. If you have online access, you can get absentee voting information from the Secretary of State's office. But there are a number of people in our community who have absentee voters ability, and they can help register to vote, help people register to vote. Check with some of your community leaders have that information, and are probably looking for folk.
Yeah, that's right.
During this time. this is crucial because we still have an election going on in our country. We still people that we need to convince that they have to go out and vote later this year for a new president. The COVID shouldn't stop us from exercising our democratic obligations here in the United States. So let me ask this question, because I know there's some people online who are continuing the conversation that the mayor was having today about hazardous duty pay. Yeah, and they're asking about workers at the library getting hazardous duty pay. And is this something you feel comfortable answering?
So yeah, we can go into it. A part of what we attempted to do was get feedback from our various department heads about employees who were engaging with the public, who were readily engaging with the public. And many of our facilities closed down. So our libraries, our recreational facilities. So several of those employees, while they would have normally engaged with the public, from what we were told, they're not engaging with the public as much because the facilities are closed. And so the goal was, who are the most forward-facing, public-facing employees at this time? And we used that. We identified about 2,000 employees with the amount of resources that we had in place to provide hazard pay to. And again, I know that that's a continuing conversation that many employees have questions about, but those are the steps that we took, and that's the information we used to determine who got it. And I know that that's been a lot of questions around that for a lot of our employees, but just know that we tried to take the best steps that we could. The mayor took as much information as he could, and with the resources that we had, to try to support those employees who were the most public facing at the time.
I think there's another question that's coming. It's does the city have a long-term plan to address COVID, since there isn't a vaccine? And I think probably we could all have some conversation on that issue.
Yeah.
People are expecting that after approximately 6 weeks, or at the most 8 weeks, a situation that has not only upended the city of Birmingham, but upended every city in America and all the countries around the world. We don't have pat answers for how we move forward in every situation, but we are formulating plans.
Yeah, so let me note this. I don't think it's unreasonable that our citizens or our employees would ask that question, because in times of uncertainty, we do look to our leaders, because our leaders do have access to people and information that many of us don't have. So I don't think it's unreasonable to seek that type of information. What I will note this, while we don't have that answer, what you can be assured is, one of the things that Mayor Woodfin has noted is that these don't need to be politically charged decisions, that these need to be decisions that are made under the advice and guidance of our health experts, because public safety is the #1 responsibility of any government. And so we don't have to use or. It doesn't have to be public safety, the health and wellness of our citizens, or the economy. It can be and. It can be and. And so for the person and who asked that question, and for all of those under the sound of my voice, while there is not a long-term plan for what that looks like, what you can be assured is the long-term plan is that we will listen to our health experts, and we have some of the best in the world in our community. And the plan that we use will be formulated around their advice and direction. We're obligated to listen more than we talk. And then our plan will be around, how do we keep our citizens safe while keeping our economy vibrant and moving?
Well, I can say from the perspective that I can lean in on, we're doing everything we can to make sure the #1 objective is to make sure our employees are safe, and those folk who come to visit municipal court are safe at the same time. And I believe every other department and division is working toward that same end to make sure goals are met. There's a question about, are you seeing, from your vantage point, evidence of any churches still having in-person worship services?
So I want to salute the houses of faith, not just churches, mosques, synagogues. I want to salute the houses of faith in our city. They have been incredibly, responsive and responsible for its members. Many of them have collaborated because several of our houses of faith don't have the technology that others have. So they've relied on the expertise and technology of others. But I really want to salute the faith leaders in the city of Birmingham. As I've mentioned, the mayor holds regular teletown halls with our faith community, and he has an ecumenical council who advises him as well. So he stays in close contact with our members of our faith community. But I want to salute and celebrate. We've seen national reports of two things. One, houses of faith that have continued to forge on and bring their members into in-person gatherings. But we've also seen houses of faith that when they've done that, several of the members have been affected by COVID-19. And we're just thankful we have not had that in the city of Birmingham. And so I want to salute you, Pastor, because you've done that. And I want to salute all of your brothers and sisters of the cloth who also serve as worship and faith leaders who have done the same.
In echoing what you're saying, I want to thank the members of 45th Street. This is our broadcast here tonight, for being forward thinking some years ago and preparing technological things that have allowed us to not miss a beat when this happened. We could leave the physical structure and yet the church could still fellowship in a cyber situation. And I think that kind of forward-thinking planning is probably beneficial to everyone. You said they've been sharing spaces, but I believe another great thing is they've been sharing ideas. They've been sharing knowledge to help keep congregations together. And to me, that's what the church is all about. So let's talk about that now. We've talked about the community and church. We were raised in the church. Mm-hmm. It informs us, right, in terms of doing our job. Talk about how you've had to depend and lean on that kind of foundation and upbringing and doing the job that you're doing now.
So I've always noted that my belief is that government should serve as the chief servant, that government is not a kiss the ring forum. And I'm thankful that the mayor chose as our mission building community through servant leadership. So a part of what I've been trained, I've been taught from our parents, from my faith walk, is that your time, your talent, your treasure, your thoughts are not meant to only make your life better. They're meant to make others' life better. And so I use this role to, one, co-labor with every city employee. My desire is to know every city employee by name and what they do. And it's my responsibility to walk with them in 4 areas: their personal development, their professional development, their financial development, and their spiritual development, because that's what's in me. That's how I was raised. That's how I was taught to love and think about people in that regard. And so that means you have to care about people and meet them where they are. And I believe that this position is not just meant for me. I think it's about, we are a talent development administration, because our job is to not be here forever, but it's to train up another generation of leaders who can take these positions and take Birmingham to the next level. And that's what I hope that the Lord continues to allow me to do while I serve, and that I'm faithful with the authority and the influence that he's given me, but I don't use it selfishly, that I use it selflessly to help folks and to do the best that I can to make their quality of life better. That's internally and externally.
Yeah, folk don't know that our maternal grandfather was the pastor of a church for many, many years in Trussville, Mount Canaan, and that we were raised, literally, people talk about going to church all the time. We were literally in church all the time growing up, and so grateful because that foundation has allowed, I think, us to understand how to help people in good times and in bad times. And if you learn how to help people under those circumstances, then COVID, whatever the circumstances, you simply rely on what you've been brought up in to continue people. And it's good. It's good that we have a leader in Mayor Woodfin who also was brought up under those circumstances.
Yeah, so the blessing about serving during this season, and I know the way political dynamics work. I know in politically charged environments how challenging it can be, but Mayor Woodfin does. He leads with a servant's heart. He's a man of faith. And I would challenge each of us. The one thing that a pandemic will do is it will make you realize what's the most important thing. And I would challenge each of us to remember, keep the main thing the main thing. And our job during this season, we can't see COVID-19, but we can trace it. Well, in matters of faith, while you may not be able to see whose we are, we can trust him when we can't trace him. And that's what our goal is while we're here. And I think that's what all of us, whether we are elected or appointed leaders, regardless of our denomination, regardless of what neighborhood we live in, we can all move with that in mind. Trust him when you can't trace him, because we are still one community.
Last thing I want to talk about is dealing with our young folk. You dealt with a long time before you took this current job. How do you think this is impacting them now? And what do you think our emphasis should be in helping them move forward?
So I think this is a difficult time for our young people, because it absolutely wrecks their norm, and they are not old enough nor mature enough to be able to appreciate the why. It's our job to really shelter them and help them understand. And so for the class of 2020, my heart aches for them, because there are many things that they don't get the opportunity to experience that many of us got the chance to experience. So I think it has affected them, but I think our job as adults and as leaders is to, as we come out of this, make this an experience for them where, one, they've learned from, but that they can grow from and see the benefits of it. But that we do as much as we can to close the gap so that it doesn't create a negative effect on their development as well.
Well, I think people will understand this when I say, and you and I have spoken about it before, mom and dad, our parents, have been gone to glory for a long time. And the question is always, have you lived your life such that your parents would be proud of, that your parents would appreciate how you've tried to represent them? And I'm going to go out there and say for you right now, I think mom and dad would say, good job, Cedric. God bless you for doing for the city, continue doing well. And not just for the city, as a father, in your role as a husband, God bless you in all those different capacities. We appreciate everything you're doing down there. We know it's a hard job. We'll continue praying for you and for the entire administration as we move through this cycle of events that in some degrees still is uncertain. But we trust that you'll make good decisions based on your faith and the good sense that the Lord has given you. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, so I want to let you know that mom and dad would be proud of you too. And and just know this, I love you. I'm proud of you. Love 45th Street. I love our Birmingham community. Just remember, we're Birmingham strong, y'all.
Amen. God bless you. God bless you for being with us today. Thank you for taking. We appreciate all your comments, and we look forward to seeing you first thing in the morning. All right. God bless you. I love you. Thank you, 45th Street, for joining in for another 45 minutes of purpose. We promised you that it would only be 45 minutes, and yes, I'm trying to keep my word on that. And so we're looking forward next week to getting back into our Bible study, back into divine moments. We've been working on that Bible study for a while, and so I hope to see you next Wednesday night at 6:30 in the evening, right here in this space, unless the Lord says something different. Good night, and take care of yourself.